So we're picking up on chapter 5 here, and this is general building heights and areas. And there's some information in chapter 6 that you have to know for chapter 5, but we'll talk about that a little bit as we go through. I want you to know what a mezzanine is and some information about a mezzanine. This is in section 505. You might want to go back to chapter 2 and look at mezzanine, just so you kind of get an idea what a mezzanine is, so it makes a little more sense. It says back in chapter 2, remember this is definitions, an intermediate level or levels between the floor and ceiling of any story. So you've probably seen this before in a commercial setting, you know, multi-story building where you're on the first floor, and then it looks like a second floor, but it's really not the second floor. It's what they call the mezzanine, and it's usually kind of open. So just kind of give you an idea. And it does say in 505.2.1 that aggregate area of the mezzanines shall not be greater than 1/3 of the floor area of that room or space which they're located. So it kind of gives you, you know, something you might run across that at some point in the future. Now we're going to look at allowable building height in feet above grade plane. All right, so once again, you have to refer possibly back to your use and occupation nomenclature, you know, what I've identified them. A is assembly, B is business, educational, so on and so forth, high hazard, and institutional. Of course, R is residential. All right, so we've got this type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. The lower the type, the more non-combustible the materials are in the construction. So type 1, concrete and steel, really type 1 and 2, concrete and steel. Now there's a and there's a B. Okay, now I could not find anywhere where in the code book where it tells us the difference between an A and a B. So I did go online, and A means it's a concrete construction. All right. B is a steel construction. It's still non-combustible materials, but you have just basically all concrete, and this you're going to have steel in it. A is concrete, B is steel. So you have a type 1, type 2, type 3. The lower the type, the more non-combustible materials are used. And then you have, so UL, you can have an unlimited type if it's all concrete. You know, if it's steel, then it's going to be 160 feet and so forth. Type 2, type 3, type 4. So we'll talk about what these types mean actually when we get to chapter 6. But just note that you know, you can't, you know, sometimes you have to, you know, it's hard to get all this information in the right order. So you're talking about something that you have, you know, they've got a chart with information that you haven't really seen before, but you'll see it in the next chapter. Okay. So, as you go through, you know, once again, now this is stories above grade on table 504.4, and all the different use and occupancy classifications, and then we talks about building area. Don't really spend a lot of time on that. Excuse me. Allowable area factor. So not really, I don't think you're going to see anything on that, but on as far as the height of a building and the type of it, generally that's definitely fair game. So as we go to chapter 6, once again, we're talking about types of construction. Now we're back to types. Okay, because the previous chapter 5 talked about the heights based on the types. Okay, so now we're talking about the types, and like I said, types 1 and 2 are those types of construction which the building elements listed in the table are non-combustible, except as permitted. So some of the stuff in the building is, but you're talking about the main frame. You're talking about your primary frame, your interior and exterior walls, your non-bearing partitions, exterior, interior. So these are the building elements, and in a type 1 and 2, then they have to be non-combustible. All right. Then you have something called a type 4, which is heavy timber. All right, so make sure that you know type 4 is heavy timber. That's going to be important for you to know. And what this table tells us here is the number of hours. Okay, this is a fire resistant rated walls. Okay, and what this, not just walls, but the actual building element, and what the fire resistant rating has to be, okay, in terms of hours. And make sure when you get a question about this that you note the footnotes. The footnotes can be important for you to get the correct answer. And we go over here once again. It talks about a let's see, exterior walls. It talks about a type 5. We talked about a type 4, which was heavy timber. Type 5 construction is a type of construction which the structural elements, exterior walls and interior walls, are of any material permitted by the code, right? So, okay, so type 5, it's not going to be non-combustible. You're going to have wood and, and asphalt, shingles, and that kind of stuff that is combustible. All right, this is what your typical homes are going to be out of, I imagine. Okay, so we're looking at section 603 now. Now, this is allowable materials. Combustible materials shall be permitted in type 1 or 2 construction in the following applications. So you got the fire retardant wood. You can use wood as long as it's thermal and acoustical insulation. It's got the flame spread index and so on and so forth. Foam-glass roof coverings, interior roof finish. So there's all these things that you can have in those buildings, but we're talking about those primary structural elements being non-combustible. So that's chapter 6, and that's chapter 5 and chapter 6.